What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got some new Keyforge cards to look at. It's been a little while since we had some new Keyforge cards. I know we've been looking at lots of Transformers cards. The rule is simple. When there's Transformers news and cards, I'll do it. When there's Keyforge news and cards, I'll do it. I will be here for all your needs, ladies and gentlemen, but today we do have new Keyforge cards, and I, for one, am absolutely delighted. Now, we are, of course, 1 week away from the Vault Tour in Birmingham. Just a quick reminder that I will be there, so if any of you guys are at the Vault Tour in Birmingham, make sure you come and say hello. I'm sure I'll be easy enough to find. So these new cards, then. Let's start off taking a little bit of a look. Let's go alphabetically. And let's start off with Brend the Fanatic. A free power creature with no armor. Shadows creatures generally don't have armor. It's got skirmish, which means if you start the fight, you don't take any damage back. Really nice, because it means you can always start, and then you don't, get destroyed. And when you play it, your opponent gains an Ember. That's not a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a good thing at all. But when you're destroyed, you steal free Ember. Now, this is something that I can absolutely get behind. Because, well, you want it gone. And that's kind of why it gets skirmish. This is one of the weird situations where skirmish might actually be a bad thing, because you want to be destroyed. When you play it, you give your opponent an Ember. That sucks. But unless it kind of pushes them over the edge to forge, and don't get me wrong, right, that could be a terrible disaster. If your opponent's got 5 Ember, assuming there's nothing increasing the cost of forging a key, and you play this, you're making them able to forge next turn. But then you get destroyed, you steal free Ember, and this does what Shadows does. It steals. Of course, back in Wave 1, we had Dusk, and Dusk was kind of fun because when it got destroyed, you gained 2 Ember. This is better because you get free and they're stolen from your opponent. Of course, you would expect them to be stolen because it's Shadows. Stealing Ember is what they do. But what you really want is to combine this with a card along the lines of Relentless Whispers. Now, the fact that it is a free power creature here is kind of huge, because Relentless Whispers, you deal 2 damage to a creature. If it destroys them, you steal an Ember. So if you can use Relentless Whispers to destroy this, you actually steal 4 Ember rather than 3. Or, it's a weaker version thereof, though it is an artifact so you can use it every turn. Seeker Needle, same deal, but you only do 1 damage rather than 2. I love this card. I think you've got to be really careful about how you play it. Because if you play it at the wrong time, you can literally push your opponent over the threshold of being able to forge a key. But either you use it as a skirmisher to just start getting damage down, destroying small creatures, etc. If something like an Ember Imp is sitting down there causing you problems, this will get rid of it without taking any damage back. But then if it does get destroyed, you steal Ember. It's really kind of good. And stealing free Ember is a lot, incidentally. That is a lot of Ember to steal. We're used to having creatures that steal 1 Ember. Look at Noddy the Thief, for instance. That was one of the ones from back in Wave 1. Action, steal an Ember. Well, stealing 3 is a lot better than stealing 1. We're also getting a lovely little action card called Dusk Chronicles. Now, it gives you an Ember bonus when you play it, which is always good. And when you play it, if your opponent has more Ember than you, you draw a card. If you have more Ember than your opponent, archive a card. It's alright. This is not one of those cards that really fills me with joy. I don't think it's a game-breaking card. The Ember bonus alone is nice. It's no Virtuous Works. Gives you free Ember, which is crazy. Although, depressingly, when I did my poll, people told me that Virtuous Works was the very best Sanctum card in Call of the Archons, which I find a little bit sad. So again, the Ember alone is fine. And drawing a card is fine. But it's only drawing 1 card. Now, to be fair, Shadows, at least in Wave 1, they didn't have the drawing options that something like logos did. I mean, goodness, if you look at something like Time Traveler, for instance, every time you play it, you get 2 cards, and you can stick it back into your deck. Rachel Trimble showed us that back with her double Time Traveler deck, the Captain of Barracks launch, when she went and won the Eindhoven Vault Tour. I mean, yeah. Time Traveler's a really good card. Drawing 1 it's fine, but it's no more than that. Now, if you've got more Ember than your opponent, you archive a card. Now, incidentally, from a rule inquiry, it seems fairly simple here that if you have the same amount of Ember as your opponent, this card does nothing. Because you don't have more than your opponent doesn't have more than you, so nothing happens. So if you've got more Ember, you archive a card. On the one hand, archiving a card can be really nice. You get cards in the archive so that on the perfect turn, you can bring it out. I mean, if you can archive something like a bait and switch or a too much to protect, it's not in your hand for your opponent to try and discard. And it means that on the turn you want to use those cards, you can grab them out, and it's wonderful. The issue here comes with if you don't actually have a card in your hand you want to archive, that could be a bit of an issue. But then again, you don't have to play the card. But then again, if you don't play the card, you don't get the Ember bonus. Boo, hiss, etc. We are getting another creature. It is Gamgee. Although I don't really like the design of the creature, I do like the artwork. If that makes any sense. Really well drawn. So what does Gamgee do? It's a 2-power creature with no armor, very, very weak, but it shadows. We kind of expect weak creatures. It's got elusive, which means you have to attack it twice to take it down. The first creature that attacks it, they don't deal any damage to you, you don't deal any damage to them. The fight quite literally never happens. When you reap, if your opponent has more Ember than you steal one. Which, weirdly, is an action version of the upgrade Dusk runner that we had back in Call of the Archons, where you reap, you steal an Ember. Oh, no, wait, it's worse than Dusk runner, because you only steal if your opponent has more Ember than you. So it does carry on the Shadows tradition of stealing Ember, but I don't know how much I'm loving this. I mean, look, if your opponent's got more Ember than you, it's really good, but then if your opponent's got more Ember than you, it's generally a bad situation. I suppose the exception would be if they've got more than you because you just forged a key and they didn't. So it's useful and all, and we did get a bunch of creatures back in Wave 1 that did similar things. I mean, Umbra stole an Ember when you fought, as did Dodger. And I've already mentioned Noddy the Thief, which had an action that stole an Ember, though there were no creatures that just reaped and stole an Ember. So, yeah, it's fine. But, I don't know, something about this seems slightly underwhelming to me. Maybe it's just me, but it's one of those, if it works, you're gaining an Ember and stealing an Ember, that's wonderful. But there's going to be plenty of times in the game where this isn't going to work because your opponent doesn't have more Ember than you. Although I suppose you can make the argument that if your opponent never has more Ember than you, that's probably a good thing. Unless they're just, using stuff like key charge to constantly be forging extra keys. That would be bad. And then finally today, ladies and gentlemen, might I introduce you to Knuckles Bolton. Another creature. Lots of creatures today. Knuckles Bolton, 3 power, 0 armor, so I suppose slightly more powerful. It's got elusive and skirmish. That's it. Having said that, that's kind of cool. Now, I've explained both of these already. Elusive means that your opponent has to attack twice to take it down. Skirmish means that when you start the fight, you never take any damage. So it's one of those weird kind of creatures. It shadows, and it seems to be made for fighting. Even though Shadows creatures generally aren't made for fighting. So it's kind of cool in that regard. You can sit there and reap and take advantage of the elusive. You can be knocking out those small creatures, taking advantage of your skirmish. It's fine. I mean, there's one creature that springs to mind from Call of the Archons that had elusive and skirmish. Anyone name it? Kindred Longshot. There might be some others, but that's the one that springs to mind for me initially. And that was also 3 power, 0 armor. The big difference was that Kindred Longshot had a great ability where when you reaped, you did 2 damage to a creature. Now, it was also a rare, meaning it's more likely that it's being reprinted in Age of Ascension, because we've been told a lot more of the rares are going to be coming back. But make no mistake about it, this is just a worse Kindrift Longshot. I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't really love it when we get worse versions of existing cards. Now it is a common, which is nice, so it's going to come around a lot more often, and it's fine, but I would say slightly underwhelming. If you ask me about the 4 cards that we've had revealed today, it's really Brend the Fanatic that jumps out to me as a potential, ooh, spicy kind of card. Because you've got Skirmish, and because when it's destroyed you can steal free Aember, but there's plenty of ways that Shadow had, at least in Call of the Archons, where they can destroy a creature and steal an Aember, so you can just kind of pile it up. The other 3 seem slightly underwhelming to me, but as always, it really depends on the board state, what your opponent's got, and the other cards in your deck, so it's very difficult to judge them on their own merits. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. New cards. I love looking at new cards. So there we go. I would like to know what you love, preferably focusing on what we've spoken about this evening. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about Keyforge and other games. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.